All right, get ready because we're diving into a topic today that you might not expect. Adult diapers.
Definitely not your average conversation.
Not at all. But before you click that next button, trust me, this is going to be fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. We're going way beyond just, diapers 101 here. We're talking about the medical, the social,
Psychological.
all the reasons why adults might choose to wear diapers.
Exactly. We're all about busting those assumptions wide open in our deep dives.
Love it.
So let's start with something that might surprise some people. The medical reasons. We're talking incontinence, which is way more common than you might think.
Way more common. People hear incontinence and they think, oh, that's just something that happens when you get older. But that's not the whole story at all.
Not even close. So for those who might not know, what's actually going on in the body when someone experiences incontinence?
So think of it this way. Bladder and bowel control, it's like this whole intricate system, right? And sometimes that system, it gets thrown off.
Okay, that makes sense. Right.
It could be anything from medication side effects to the result of a surgery or even a symptom of a bigger health issue.
Right. It's not always as simple as it seems.
Yeah, exactly.
Our sources for today's deep dive really focused on autism, which I have to admit I hadn't really connected to incontinence before.
And it's a connection worth exploring. You see, with autism, it exists on a spectrum. And for some people, those sensory challenges that come with using the toilet, those can be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, it's not a one-size-fits-all experience.
Exactly. It's not as simple as just, oh, go use the bathroom. We're talking about experiencing everyday sensations, but with the volume turned way up.
And we often take for granted how many sensory experiences are involved with something we do every single day, multiple times a day.
All the time. Think about it. The feeling of toilet paper, the sound of a flushing toilet, the smells, those can be completely overwhelming if you're experiencing them with that heightened sensitivity.
We're talking about the North Shore article here on managing incontinence with autism, right?
That's the one. And they made a great point about something called hyposensitivity, too.
Hyposensitivity.
Yeah, so it's basically the flip side. Instead of being overly sensitive, some individuals, they don't register those urges as intensely.
So they might not even realize they need to go until it's too late.
Exactly, because their body is not sending those signals in the same way.
So we're talking about two sides of the same coin, really. Hypersensitivity making the experience too intense, hyposensitivity making it tough to even recognize the need.
Exactly. And for a lot of autistic individuals, diapers, they offer this sense of security, this dignity,
It allows them to just navigate the world comfortably.
Exactly. It's about feeling comfortable and safe. Basic human needs. And that actually leads perfectly to another big part of this, forced retention, especially in children.
Forced retention. So we're talking about forcing kids to hold it, even when they really have to go.
Unfortunately, yes. And it's something that most people don't realize can have such a big impact down the road.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I never would have thought about the long-term effects of that.
It's wild, right? We found this document, and honestly, it was kind of alarming. It was signed by all these healthcare professionals, and they were very clear denying kids bathroom breaks. It's straight up child abuse and neglect.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that definitely puts things into perspective. What kind of health risks were they talking about?
Well, in the short term, you've got urinary tract infections, constipation, just general discomfort and misery for the kid.
Makes sense.
But the long-term stuff, that's where it gets scary. We're talking potential kidney damage, bladder problems, even incontinence later in life.
So it's like we're setting these kids up for the very issues we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Making them more likely to need diapers as adults because they were told to hold it too much as kids.
It's a pretty compelling argument when you think about it. If you're constantly ignoring your body's signals, those signals get all messed up.
Yeah, it's like your body's trying to tell you something and you're just ignoring it.
Exactly. Your poor bladder and bowels are like, what are we supposed to be doing here?
Right. No wonder things get out of whack. It makes you wonder about some of those common practices, like in schools. We schedule time for recess, for snacks, but bathroom breaks.
It's like an afterthought, right?
Yeah, or even worse, it's like a reward for good behavior. Oh, you finished your work. Okay, now you can go to the bathroom.
It's so ingrained in our culture, but that doesn't mean it's right.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered the medical reasons behind diaper use, but this deep dive also took us into some uncharted territory. Adults who choose to wear diapers for reasons other than medical necessity.
I think a whole different side of this conversation.
Right, and that's where we get to the ABDL community, adult baby diaper lovers.
A community that definitely faces a lot of misunderstanding and judgment.
I have to be honest, this was a whole new world for me. So
Hmm.
for those who are maybe unfamiliar, can you give us a little background?
Sure. So the ABDL community, it's often misconstrued as just being about a fetish,
Right, I can see how people might jump to that conclusion.
but it's really about so much more than that. At its core, it's about seeking comfort, security, a sense of self, that feeling of being safe and secure, kind of like we were talking about with those sensory challenges earlier.
And the Teichbels article we read really emphasized that, how it's not always about a fetish. It can be about revisiting a time when things felt simpler, maybe even safer.
Exactly. Or for some, it's that sensory experience. There's something about the feeling of wearing a diaper that they find comforting.
They even talked about how for some people it's almost therapeutic, like it helps them to relax and de-stress.
And for others, it's about connection, finding a community of people who understand them, who accept them for who they are.
Right, that sense of belonging is so important.
Absolutely. We all crave that.
It really does make you think twice about judging something you don't understand.
Absolutely. And you know, it's interesting, this whole idea of finding comfort and security in unexpected ways, it kind of connects back to something else the Teichbels article talked about, the potential link between ABDL and conditions like Asperger's.
Oh yeah, they were saying how for some, that interest in wearing diapers, it might come from that need for sensory comfort, or even just like a need for control, for predictability.
Right. And those needs, they can be super strong for folks with Asperger's or other sensory processing differences.
Absolutely. In the Why Want Diapers article, they dug into that even more. Like, it's not just about people being, quote unquote, stuck in childhood.
Right. Like it's some simple thing.
Exactly. It's way more nuanced, way more complex than that.
It really is. And you know, at the end of the day, it's about understanding those individual experiences, those underlying needs, rather than just slapping on a label.
Having that empathy we were talking about earlier.
100%. And you know, speaking of recognizing the complexity of these experiences, we did want to touch on the fact that for some folks, diaper use might be a sign of something deeper that needs a little extra support.
Right. It's not always just as simple as a preference or a lifestyle choice.
Exactly. It's about being honest with yourself, evaluating how it's impacting your life, your relationships.
Absolutely. And, we watched that YouTube video, How to Know If You're Addicted to Wearing Diapers.
That was a really insightful one.
It was, and they made a really good point about how, if it's starting to consume your thoughts, interfere with work, school, relationships.
That's when it might be time to reach out.
Right. Like, if you're finding it hard to function without diapers, if they're causing you distress, leading to maybe some social isolation.
It's important to remember that you're not alone.
Not at all. And there's zero shame in seeking help.
None whatsoever. There are resources out there, therapy, support groups.
All designed to help people work through these things in a healthy way. It's all about prioritizing your mental well-being.
Couldn't agree more. And, you know, it takes a lot of strength to acknowledge those struggles and reach out for support.
It really does.
Huge step.
Well, here we are at the end of our deep dive, and I gotta say, this is one I did not expect to be so thought-provoking.
You and me both. It's amazing what we uncover when we go beyond the surface, challenge those assumptions.
Right. And approach these topics with a little curiosity, a little empathy.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good takeaway for any conversation, not just about diapers.
100%. Everyone's journey is unique, and we all deserve that understanding.
Couldn't agree more. Well said.
So, that's it for today. As always, keep those minds open, keep those conversations going, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.